how long the Kukis will endure this. Before the worst things come up, a Zalingam media analysis on how many times the Kukis were provoked, but Kuki restraint. Before the worst things come up, Zalingam media wants to expose the truth to the public, not to blame the Kukis in the future, should the situation in the hills spiral out of control. What has been unfolding over the past few years, and more intensely since May 3, 2023, is not an isolated pattern of misunderstanding, but a series of deliberate provocations aimed at testing the patience and resilience of the Kuki people. While the ongoing Meitei-Kuki conflict has captured national headlines, another conflict has been quietly simmering in the hills, the growing tension between the Tangkhul Kaka Nagas and the Kukis. This is a detailed examination of how repeatedly, and in what forms, Tangkhul provocations have threatened the fragile coexistence of hill communities, from highway disputes and disrespect at Kuki checkpoints, to the burning of ancient Kuki villages like Shassad and the beating of Kuki Impi leaders. The record of Tangkhul aggression speaks for itself. Each event is a ticking time bomb, planted to erode peace and provoke the Kukis into reaction. 1. The first-time bomb, the highway checkpoint issue. When the ethnic conflict between the Meiteis and Kukis erupted on May 3, 2023, the Kukis took a defensive stance to protect their hill territories. Maintaining and checking highways became a matter of survival. The Kukis were not only protecting their own people, but also trying to prevent Meitei infiltration into Kuki territories. Kuki volunteers set up highway checkpoints on routes connecting the Meitei Valley and the hill districts, particularly the Ukhrul, Kamjong and Ukhrul roads. These checkpoints were meant to ensure that no armed Meitei or suspected militant could enter the Kuki-dominated regions. But instead of solidarity, the Kuki volunteers faced hostility from the Tangkhul Kaka Nagas. Tangkhul groups opposed the Kuki checkpoints, claiming that the Kukis had no right to control the highways. Reports from local observers revealed that Tangkhul representatives even issued ultimatums to remove the checkpoints and demanded large sums of money, running into lakhs, from Kuki volunteers for continuing their security work. This was the first major provocation, a direct challenge to Kuki authority in their own jurisdiction. The Kukis saw this as an intentional attempt to destabilize their internal defense and create division among the hill tribes during a time when unity was needed most. 2. The Ukhrul Imphal Road incident, the arrogance of defiance. The second significant provocation unfolded on the Ukhrul Imphal route, a crucial lifeline for both Kukis and Tangkhuls. As security tensions heightened, Kuki volunteers were stationed along the road to check vehicles for contraband or infiltration. However, several Tangkhul drivers operating autos and wingers on this route deliberately refused to stop or show respect at Kuki checkpoints. Some even mocked the volunteers, boasting that they were free men who did not recognize Kuki authority. One such driver was reportedly slapped by a Kuki volunteer for his repeated defiance. That single act, born out of frustration and discipline, was blown out of proportion. Tangkhul organizations immediately demanded harsh action against the Kukis, painting them as aggressors without context. What was ignored in the narrative was the arrogance and deliberate provocation that triggered the reaction. It was yet another episode where Tangkhul actors used minor incidents to project themselves as victims and the Kukis as offenders, when in truth the situation was one of repeated humiliation and disrespect toward Kuki volunteers maintaining peace in their own lands. 3. The burning of Shassad, the deepest scar. The destruction of Shassad village remains one of the most painful memories for the Kuki people. Long before the May 2023 conflict, the village, one of the oldest Kuki settlements, was burned to ashes by Tangkhul attackers. The incident stemmed from an encroachment dispute within the jurisdiction of a Kuki chief. Despite attempts by local leaders to settle the matter peacefully, Tangkhul villagers advanced aggressively. When Kukis protested through a bund, Tangkhul elements mocked the movement. Soon after, the Kuki houses in Shassad were set ablaze. The images of burnt homes and displaced families spread across the region, marking the Tangkhul community as the aggressor. The tragedy was not only an act of violence, it was an attempt to erase a historical Kuki settlement from the map. Even today, the burning of Shassad stands as a symbol of betrayal, a reminder that while the Tangkhuls professed Christianity and brotherhood, their actions in Shassad were driven by territorial greed and hatred. Many Kukis describe the attack as one of the biggest mistakes committed by the Tangkhul community, one that permanently fractured intertribal trust. 4. The power threat, NSCNAM intimidation. Another layer of Tangkhul provocation comes from their connection to the NSCNAM. Over the years, Kuki chiefs and community leaders have been repeatedly intimidated with statements like NSCNAM rules here, or you cannot act beyond the law of the Naga movement. Such statements are not mere words, they are threats. They signify that Tankhuls are leveraging the militant influence of the NSCNAM to impose fear among Kukis in the adjoining regions of Ukhrul, Kamjong and Senapati. The repeated message is clear. Tangkhul see themselves as power brokers in the hills, and the Kukis must submit to their political dominance. This behavior has deeply insulted traditional Kuki authorities, who operate under a hereditary chieftainship system recognized long before the NSCNAM even existed. These actions also show a dangerous pattern, political intimidation being used as a tool to suppress ethnic independence. It is not just about land or checkpoints. It is about asserting supremacy and silencing another community through fear. 5. The beating of Kuki Impi GHQ leader. The most recent and shocking provocation was the assault on Letkaland Kongsai, a senior leader of the Kuki Impi General Headquarters. The Kuki Impi represents the supreme body of the Kuki nation, responsible for guiding policy, unity and social order. When one of its top leaders was beaten by Sinakethal villagers, allegedly of Tangkhul Kaka origin without any just cause, it crossed every limit of decency. It was not merely a physical attack, it was an insult to the entire Kuki nation. This act exposed the growing boldness of Tangkhul elements, who no longer even hesitate to lay hands on the top representative of another community's national institution. The Kukis saw it as an open challenge to their collective dignity and sovereignty. Despite this, the Kuki side once again avoided retaliation, choosing peace over revenge, a restraint that the Tankhuls often misinterpret as weakness. 6. Repeated intimidations and psychological warfare. Over time, Kukis have faced a series of smaller but continuous provocations from Tangkhul groups. These include verbal threats, attempts to disrupt transport of goods into Kuki areas, interference in local governance, and the spreading of rumors through local networks. Each act, though small in isolation, contributes to a larger atmosphere of tension. It is a calculated effort to wear down Kuki patience and portray the Tankhuls as the dominant hill group. Yet the Kukis have shown remarkable maturity. Their silence is not surrender, it is an act of restraint. But as history has proven, when restraint is tested beyond endurance, the consequences can be catastrophic. Zalingam media warns that before the worst comes, these provocations must be recognized for what they are, deliberate acts meant to destroy harmony in the hills. 7. The political backdrop, hidden motives behind the provocations. At the heart of these repeated provocations lies the larger political ambition of the Tangkhul leadership, which remains aligned with the NSCNAM's vision of a greater Nagalim. This ideology seeks to include vast Kuki-inhabited areas under the Naga fold, an idea that directly threatens the traditional Kuki chieftainship and self-governance structure. To achieve this, Tangkhul groups have used both direct and indirect methods: intimidation, land encroachment, and manipulating narratives of shared ancestry to claim Kuki territories as Naga land. But the Kukis have never accepted these claims. They continue to assert their right to self-rule, rooted in a history that predates colonial records. Their loyalty to their ancestral chiefs and their unified stand against encroachment have frustrated Tangkhul political ambitions, resulting in continued provocation. 8. Kuki restraint and readiness. Despite countless provocations, the Kukis have avoided conflict. Their leaders have appealed for peace, understanding and investigation rather than retaliation, but this does not mean they are unprepared. The Kuki people have long learned from history, the burning of Shassad, the humiliation of their leaders, the defiance at checkpoints, and the threats from NSCNAM supporters, that silence cannot last forever. Many community elders now warn that the Kukis are ready to defend themselves if the provocations persist. The message is clear. The Kukis are peace-loving but not powerless. Should the Tankhuls continue to test their limits, any outbreak of violence that follows will not be the Kukis' fault, it will be the result of a long chain of ignored provocations. 9. The path forward, avoiding the inevitable. If these issues remain unaddressed, the region risks another cycle of ethnic unrest. The Tangkhul community must recognize that constant provocation and political domination cannot ensure long-term peace. Mutual respect, dialogue, and acknowledgement of territorial boundaries are the only solutions. Tangkhul organizations must also stop using NSCNAM influence as a tool of intimidation and instead promote peaceful coexistence through cooperation. For their part, the Kukis must continue their commitment to peace, but with firmness in defending their rights and dignity. The longer the provocations go unchecked, the greater the danger that one spark may ignite another tragedy in the hills. Conclusion. When one asks how many times the Kukis were provoked by Tangkhuls, the answer cannot be measured simply by numbers. It is a story of repeated humiliation, betrayal, and encroachment masked under the guise of ethnic superiority. From the highway disputes of May 2023 to the burning of Shassad and the beating of Kuki Impi leaders, every act of Tangkhul aggression has pushed the hills closer to chaos. The Kukis have endured, hoping reason will prevail, but peace cannot survive on one side's restraint alone. Before the worst comes, Zeilingam media places this record before the public, not to fan hatred but to expose the truth. The Kukis have been patient, respectful, and defensive. If the day comes when they are forced to defend themselves, the world must remember who provoked them first. Sources. Based on regional reports, testimonies, and documented accounts from the Imphal Free Press, the Sangay Express, Zeilingam media field correspondence, and eyewitness statements collected between 2000 and 2025. Disclaimer from Zeilingam media. This analysis is presented for documentary and educational purposes. Its intent is to shed light on the sequence of provocations that have endangered peace in the hill regions. Zeilingam media stands firmly for truth, justice, and peaceful coexistence between all communities. The Kukis must not be blamed if future hostilities arise out of repeated provocations. True peace can only come through acknowledgement, accountability, and respect for every community's right to live in dignity and freedom.